Hello, friends. It's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with, I'm going to call this a New Year Energies reading for the collective. So, if you haven't noticed, it is 2025. So, I wanted to kind of see what we should expect for 2025. Now, I don't usually do like these massive kind of collective readings for everybody, especially before New Year, but I was like, I haven't done it before. Let's see what we have. I usually do these as a more personal kind of thing for people, just to kind of see if that is a better fit for me. But since I'm trying to be a little bit more present in how I'm showing up on my YouTube channel this year, I was like, let's see. And I know most people want to do like pick a piles and stuff like that, and I will offer hopefully more of those this year. They are time consuming, and I've just recently have just not had a ton of time. All right, so I'm using my Magpie Tarot deck. Clear that energy out of there, and let's see. So our very first card, if you have watched my New Year Energies tarot spread video, I kind of go through how I would lay this out. So I'm going to do something similar, but I'm going to have the intention of reading the collective. So let's get into it. All right, so our action card is going to be, who do we really want to be deep down this year? What desires want to be expressed? What actions do we need to take? So as a collective, what desires, do we, have that want to be expressed? What actions do we need to take? Like, what do we need to focus on? So here we have the 8 of Wands for our very first card. Okay. What is the theme of this new year for the collective? Our theme will be the 9 of Swords. That's lovely. All right. So what will the gratitude be like for 2025 as a collective? Where is the gift? What are our opportunities? What energies are working in our favor? We have the 8 of Pentacles. All right. Now, what do we need to release? What are we holding on to? What do we need to let go of? What obstacles have held us back previously? What energy is departing in 2025 as a collective? So here we have Justice. Move these up a little bit so you guys can see. And then for what we want to manifest, what can we embrace more of or do more of in 2025? How can we approach things this year? Another lights here. So we have the 2 of Wands. Okay. Now the last card is going to be an oracle card, and I'm going to be using the Elemental Empath deck. I just think it's beautiful. It has really great cards. So let's kind of shuffle this up a little bit so we can kind of see what we need. So our oracle with guidance and clarity for the year of 2025 as a collective, we have Balance, another kind of Justice-y card. So all is connected, balance extremes, inner and outer. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what I pulled here and how I would interpret these energies and these cards. I usually kind of stagger these a little bit, but because I'm like filming, I want to make sure you guys can see everything. Okay. All right. So for our action card, who do we really want to be deep down? What desire wants to be expressed? What actions do we need to take? So here we have the 8 of Wands, which to me is a card of like stability and joy and like getting like that second wind, really, finding our motivation to push us into whatever it is that we need to be focusing on. I think wands are not just passionate and fiery and, momentum, I think that they very much focus us and our attention on what sort of things light us up, what sort of things really drive us, what makes us feel connected and alive. And so I think that this is very much about us going after whatever we have been wanting to do. Maybe this is a reminder that our time here is short. And so we should really be, creating some momentum for ourselves, whether that is like with travel, movement, action oriented sort of things. I think it's interesting that this is the action card, is that we're being reminded like, hey, this is our second wind. Even if we feel like this last year has kind of kicked our butts in some way, this is that reminder of like, we need to celebrate. We need to kind of get out there and really go after the things that light us up. The other thing with the Eight of Wands is I feel it's very much a reminder that we need to be clear on what direction we're headed in. This isn't about just chaotic movement and momentum just for the sake of it. I think if anything, the Eight of Wands is really taking the energy of that focused intent. And I think for us, for this year, who we really want to be is maybe someone that is, kind of overcoming the obstacles on the path. Maybe we want to be a little bit more focused on how we're showing up and what that looks like for us long term, as well as being a little bit more aware of where our action is taking us. Like, where are our choices really leading us at this point? Whether that's, the current choices that we're making or the choices that we will be making this year. I think that if anything, this year is kind of saying like, this is not a time for us to just kind of wait around for life to happen to us. This is about us kind of going out into the world and choosing our own adventure in a lot of ways. So I think the action card for this year will be very much like, hey, you have to pick and choose what you value, what that looks like, what makes you feel stable, what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel alive once again, and kind of moving a little bit more into that energy and not questioning yourself so much, because it feels very much like getting that second wind, so to speak. So our theme, which I think is kind of funny, just because I know swords get a little bit of a bad reputation and can be seen as harsh energies. But as a collective, I feel like we're all sort of feeling this. The Nine of Swords is a card of anxieties and fears and, that kind of energy. So I feel like another thing that tends to come up with the Nine of Swords is this sense of being trapped in our mental anxieties, being too hard focused on our darkest fears in the sense of just allowing things to kind of fester, where I feel like the energy is not just about the overanalyzing, the overthinking, kind of focusing entirely too much on the mental anxieties that tend to come up whenever we're like stuck in that mental loop. I think the Nine of Swords is kind of saying like, maybe for too long we've been too afraid to make a different choice, to kind of move out of certain rhythms or certain themes, or to make different choices about what we would like for ourselves. I know that collectively, and especially the world at large, a lot of countries are kind of going through like this upheaval. There's the societal kind of expectations that are kind of pressing upon all of us. It may feel very much like, what is the freaking point? And as someone that lives in the US and has grown up in the US, I will say that 2025, I don't really have a lot of, I don't want to say it's like a lack of hope, but maybe there's a very just kind of like, it is what it is kind of vibe for me personally. That's just kind of how I'm feeling about things. And I think a lot of this just stems from everything that's happened in the last few years. I think a lot of us are still processing, dealing with, trying to really, I guess, like focus on everything that we've experienced in the last like 5 years. I think a lot of us have just had so many changes, so many shifts, so many challenges and obstacles that have come up. whether they are, within our control or outside of our control. And I feel like the Nine of Swords being the theme is that maybe a lot of us are just kind of feeling like, what is going on? What sort of timeline did I slip into? And what does this mean for me and mine moving forward? So I think a lot of us have a lot of fear because it's hard to be optimistic, especially when we feel like trying to be hopeful, trying to remain kind of like receptive and open hasn't really yielded a lot of results for many of us. So I think the theme with this is that maybe we're just kind of feeling like, what's the point? And the Nine of Swords is, here's a reminder saying like there's something that we need to let go of, whether that is our own kind of fears and anxieties about what's been going on and what that means for us moving forward, as well as like having the expectation that we have to learn to let go of something. And so I feel like for the theme here is that maybe we really need to process a lot of these anxieties. We need to kind of sit with it and be like, where is this really stemming from, so that we can really truly heal. Another thing that I think is interesting is this year is going to be the year of the Hermit card, essentially. So we have that energy of 9 of trying to kind of go within and seek out our own guidance, seek out our own light. And in order to do so, we have to kind of take a step back and really understand what we believe, what we've been hanging on to, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And I think the Nine of Swords is kind of here saying there's a lot of stuff that maybe we have to confront within ourselves, within the collective, within our societies, culturally, in so many different ways. So it's going to feel very much like a coming apart because we're having to confront so many of these big, scary things within ourselves. And once we do and shine a light on it, we're going to realize a lot of it doesn't really make sense for what we want for ourselves moving forward. So I think the theme here is going to be very much about looking at what makes us anxious, what are we constantly, what is the mental loop doing? And trying to confront that in a way that allows us to really understand where some of this energy really comes from. So as much as it may feel like not the nicest kind of energy to have to confront some of this stuff, I think it's because we're ready to confront it. So if we move on to our gratitude card, this is like, where's the gift? What are our opportunities? What energies are working in our favor? We have the Eight of Pentacles. Now, the Eight of Pentacles to me is very much a card of like honing our zone of genius. It's very much a card of dedicated effort. It is really about that perfectionism, putting forth the effort in order to co-create exactly what we want and what we need. So the gratitude here is going to be our hard work, our dedication, what we've actually been focusing on, what have we been investing our time in, what sort of things have we been trying to grow and develop within ourselves, within our physical world, whether it's like our physical bodies as well, because it is a Pentacles card. So we have to look at, our physical strength. We have to look at our homes, our spaces, our, material life in a lot of different ways. And so the gratitude here is there's a lot of things that are working in our favor if we have put in the effort, if we have dedicated ourselves to the things that are required of us at this time. So, excuse me, I think with the Eight of Pentacles here as our gratitude is, as much as we may feel helpless and hopeless in some ways, as far as like some of the mental stuff going on, we do have an invitation here to kind of rise above it, to really focus on what we do have and what we've kind of created for ourselves. So even if things aren't exactly how we thought they were going to be, maybe look at, what have you been creating for yourself? Like, what does your space look like? What does your physical health feel like? What does, your career look like at this time? What sort of things are a part of you, like part of your like dedication and your hard work? Like, what is it that you're good at? And, it's not so much about like being a perfectionist about it, because I think like that is one of the energies that tends to come up with the Eight of Pentacles, is that maybe you're too focused on it being perfect for it to be good enough. And not to be like whatever, but nothing is ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that can be improved upon. Just get it out there, I think, is kind of the energy of this card, of just like put it out there, do what you can. You know, you can learn as you go. Things are constantly going to change. You have to learn how to just be flexible enough to remain teachable, basically, and to continuously learn and improve in that way. So I think the Eight of Pentacles is here as a reminder for us that our gift is really in what we're focusing on, what we're co-creating with the universe, what we're actually putting a lot of our effort into. And so maybe this is just a reminder to say, okay, I may not be able to control a lot of the things that are happening in the world outside of me, but how can I make my world less scary? How can I, find the things that, bring me back to life, that light me on fire? And how can I do something with that to create something beautiful for everyone around me? So that is our gratitude card. So what we need to release, what are we hanging on to? What do we need to let go of? What obstacles are holding us back? What energy is departing? So here we have the Justice card, which to me is very much a card of balance and harmony, as well as detaching from the outcome of certain things, which I think is interesting to have it in the release kind of energy. I think a lot of us have been feeling like our lives are out of balance. Things have not really been going the way that maybe we had anticipated that they would go, which is probably why we have a lot of this kind of mental anxiety about things. And I think that this is kind of saying, like, stop trying to have it be perfect. Again, stop trying to feel like the brunt of the energy here has to be on your shoulders exclusively. I think the other thing with the Justice card is that it's maybe saying that we have been too hard pressed on expecting others to kind of have that same sense of honor that we may have over what is right and how this looks for everybody else. The thing with Justice is it is very much a card of bringing things into balance, of finding harmony, but it requires both parties to participate actively in order for there to be that balance. And both parties can be you and work, it can be you and the people in your family, it can be you versus others, whatever you want to look at it as. And I think that this is kind of saying, like, we got to let that go. We got to stop waiting for other people to kind of meet us where we're at. We just have to be who we are and show up as we are. So I think Justice is here to kind of let us know, like, hey, we have to kind of detach from the expectation that things are going to be fair, or that things are going to, be made with a lot of honor or respect for the other party. The other thing with this is that I feel like this really rules over like the court systems, justice, in the sense of like, the fairness, the balance. It's very much Libra coded. So it is very much, I feel like, telling us like to look at like, what do we value? Maybe there's some things there that we have to let go of, some expectations that we've been placing upon ourselves that really don't make sense for the lives that we actually have and the lives that we're living at this current moment. And so I feel like the Justice card here is also saying, like, maybe we just have to let go of the idea of what we thought our life was going to look like at this point and just kind of move into it. We have to kind of detach and kind of move through whatever it is that is being presented to us as is, versus trying to make it look a certain way or feel a certain way. So I think with Justice here, the obstacle is maybe trying to find balance. And so maybe that's not really what we should be doing this year. And I know it sounds very much like, oh, just fuck balance. It's not that. I think it's more of stop trying to have everything be perfect or have everything look a certain way and feel fair for everybody. Maybe it's saying stop trying to be fair for everybody else and apply some of that harmony and that fairness to yourself versus like feeling bad about, am I doing enough for everybody else? Is everything in balance? Is everything making sense? It's just not going to. It's impossible for us to find a good balance in our lives at all times. And I think that this is kind of saying like, okay, maybe balance for us is like taking a step back and taking care of our physical bodies. Maybe it's kind of processing some of the mental load we have going on. Maybe it's getting out there and being more active. And I think with this is kind of saying like, stop trying to make it harmonious for everybody else. How does it really feel for you? How does this feel within your life? And maybe you got to let go of this sense of doing what is right all the time for everybody else, especially if it doesn't make sense for you. Even if you feel like you're being pitted into a situation or into circumstances that feel very uncomfortable for you, I think that this is kind of saying like we have to kind of let go of this need of having everything look fair and balanced, because I don't know about you guys, but some of the things I've learned as an adult is that life is not always going to feel fair. Life is sometimes going to feel very unfair. It's going to feel very much like, you do good and sometimes you don't get good back, and that's okay. And I think maybe some of us are kind of coming to this realization that we don't always have to do things according to what everybody else expects of us. We don't always have to try to keep the harmony for everybody else. It's very much about us kind of being more empowered and living in our truth in some ways, but also not feeling like that is the only truth or the only way for us to be empowered, if that makes sense. All right. So with our manifest card, this is like, what can we embrace more of or do more of? And how can we approach things this year? So here we have the Two of Wands, which is a card of planning and strategizing and kind of making choices, kind of like building upon what we know and what we have. I think the Two of Wands is really taking the spark of the Ace of Wands and kind of like growing this new vitality towards what we want. It's not really so much about going out into the world and kind of capturing it the way that we want to, but I think that this is more of, okay, what plans can I make for myself? What sort of things can I strategize towards? Like, what sort of things do I really want for my life? And what does that look like? And I think because everything has been so, I feel like, fragile the last few years, I don't know about you guys, I haven't really made a lot of plans on an annual basis. I used to try to kind of have like yearly goals or things like that. And I kind of gave a lot of that up because I would try to plan my life and it just would not come together. But I think with the Two of Wands here is that maybe it is about what is like lighting your fire, what makes you feel vital, what makes you feel connected and passionate about what's coming for you moving forward. So I think the Two of Wands is kind of here as an invitation to say, how can we approach things this year? We can plan, we can kind of make a strategy, we can kind of look at, what choices we have, what is available to us, how we can kind of connect with others on a more like passionate, real kind of way. Like, what kind of connections are we making? What sort of people are showing up in our lives, and really using that to be what guides us forward, what makes us feel a little bit more connected to our purpose, and what also makes us excited for things moving forward. So I think the biggest thing with the Two of Wands is maybe we need to kind of prepare. And I think manifesting here is kind of saying like, okay, maybe we need to prepare for like what we want. If you want a life that feels better for you, what sort of things are you doing now so that that is something that can kind of coexist with the life that you have? One of the things I have repeatedly said during like readings and things like that with clients is, sometimes we want something, but there's no room in our lives. Like, let's say you're someone who's extremely busy, but single, and you're like, I want a partner or whatever. It's hard for us to imagine when that time will happen because we have to make the time and we have to make the space in order for someone else to kind of fit into that box, basically. And I think the Two of Wands is very much a reminder of that, of just like, okay, if I want something in my life, I have to make space for it. I have to make time for it. I have to prioritize that. So if I'm like, if I want to have a life that is more magical or more connected for myself, what am I doing daily to have that become my existence and my truth? So for me personally, it's like in the mornings, I take time out to sit with my altars, to kind of pull some cards, to kind of connect a little bit. And then in the evenings, I also try to take some time out, if I can, and if I have the energy, to journal a little bit, to kind of connect with my ancestors and just have those spiritual practices. It is a part of my spiritual hygiene. It's a part of what I value. I've had to make my life fit that. So I've had to make space for those things. And so I think the Two of Wands is very much a reminder of that, of like, we have to embrace more of the things that we desire, but we also have to make space in our lives for that to be true. Like if I'm like, I want to travel this year, what plans am I making in order for that to be something that can happen? Or what space am I making in my life so that is an opportunity that can be presented to me? I can't be upset if I don't do any travel, but then I also made no moves or no plans to make that happen. So we have to be very aware of our intention, where we're going with things, what kind of plans are we making? Are we being receptive to, telling the universe, hey, this is what I want. I want to co-create this with you. How can we make this happen for me if I make the space for these things? Allowing the universe to fill it, if that makes sense. Sorry, my throat is so scratchy today. Okay, finally, our final card, our oracle, it's the guidance and clarity for this year, is balance. So as much as we're like, hey, we have to let go of feeling like all of the balance is something that we have to carry on our shoulders. This is maybe saying that we need to balance those extremes. And we have to look at the inner and the outer, because I think a lot of us, when we think of balance, we think of like all the plates that we have spinning, and trying to keep those still going, versus what do I really need this year? What really do I value? What sort of things can I do with the time that I have? And maybe that kind of comes back to the theme of looking at some of our darkest fears, looking at some of the things that feel very challenging for us to process. And maybe that is a part of the balance, is to bring forth the light that we feel, the things that we feel like we need to be doing, versus like the anxieties that have kind of held us back in some ways, and bring that into balance without feeling like we have to do it in a way that is so rigid that we don't feel happy about what's happening. And I think with this is just a reminder that everything is connected. Everything can work in beautiful harmony if we allow it to, even if it doesn't always feel that way. I think that's the biggest kind of drawback at times with balance, is that we feel like there's so much we have to do in order for us to have the space for that to happen. And I think balance is kind of here saying like, all right, this is more about the extremes, the like, oh, I gotta work, super hard at this thing, or I have to pour in so much of myself into this project in order to get the reward at the end of the day, versus finding that balance, whether it's through like your physical health, and ensuring that there is that balance, that you're not being so restrictive with yourself that you are going from one extreme to the other. Or, feeling like, oh, I have to like cut myself off from these things that I may enjoy because they're quote unquote not good for me. We still require a lot of balance, basically everything in moderation, good and bad. I think there's nothing wrong with us finding a groove where we can enjoy ourselves and still be authentic to our experience and what we need. And so I think that this year is very much about looking at all of the things going on in the world and trying to bring balance into that. So a lot of people may see a lot of darkness, or a lot of things not really, working in favor of what the collective may want or desire. But I think the balance here can also be, you know, are we shining a light on these dark things? Are we dispelling some of these shadows by, you know, being present and showing up in the ways that we need to? So I think balance is very much a reminder that we are also a part of what needs to shift, and we can do that by how we show up. Not so much trying to be rigid in the way justice can seem, where it's very much like, you know, trying to be very detached and very just like it is what it is. I think balance here, as our guidance and clarity for this year, is again balancing those extremes in a way that is of benefit for us versus challenging what we have going on for ourselves. So I hope that made sense. Let me know what you guys think of this. Is this something that you've been feeling? Do you guys do a New Year's kind of practice for yourself? I've done nothing. I'm not gonna lie, I've done nothing. I haven't done any of my New Year practices. It's been kind of a interesting few days for me. But let's see what we need to leave behind in 2024. So we have the Emperor reversed. Maybe this is the energy that's leaving, is this kind of feeling like the need to dominate certain things. And what is 2025 bringing us? We have the Seven of Cups, which is choices, but it can also be illusion. So maybe we need to be very clear. And I think by having balance, we can feel like we don't always have to dominate a situation, and we can still have the choices necessary in order to move forward and in order for us to feel successful for ourselves. But remember, not everything that's offered to us is always going to be of benefit to who we are. So be aware of that energy too. So I hope this made sense. I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.